Hello, this is Linda Lysakowski, and I'm going to be telling you about another one of the quick guide books that Joanne Oppelt and I wrote together. And I'm really excited about these books because oftentimes there are so many great books out there, but a lot of people don't have much time for reading. So these are very quick guides. You can see they're fairly short and concise. And this one is called Building a Five-Star Board. And I have been doing fundraising for nonprofits for a long, long time. And one of the things that I found is sometimes organizations call me in and say, we need a fundraising campaign, we need a capital campaign, we need to improve our public relations. But what they really need when I get down to asking them some questions is they really need to reorganize their boards or at least train their boards. So this book we wrote for those of you who might need to learn how to build a five-star board. So we talk in this book about what is a five-star board and where to find good members. But one of the things that I think is really important is how you recruit board members. And I want to tell you a little horror story. I won't name the organization, but one of my clients many years ago had a meeting in December, and I was attending the meeting because I was consulting for them. And at that December board meeting, the CEO of the organization said, "Oh, we want to thank so and so and so and so. Their terms are ending now. And we really need to find some new board members. Does anybody have any ideas?" And I just about fell through the floor. And I thought the good news was nobody had any ideas. Because when you recruit that way, people just start naming their cousin, their brother, their next door neighbor, somebody they work with, without giving any thought to whether this person is really going to be a good board member for you. So now that was the extreme. Sometimes there is a nominating committee, but they don't really understand their job and they end up meeting in November or December when it's time to elect new board members. So I'm going to read to you a little bit from chapter 7 about whose job it is to recruit board members. You may need to rethink who does the recruiting of your board members. Instead of a nominating committee that meet once a year to fill vacant seats, you should appoint a year-round governance committee. You may call it something else, but governance committee seems to be a logical title. This committee can also be called the Board Resources Committee or the Committee on Directorship, or any name with which your organization feels comfortable. But whatever the title, the following are the key functions of the to remember about this committee. First of all, it should meet year round. It doesn't wait till December or November to say, oh, I guess we need to fill board positions. It should be constantly thinking about who might be good board members. It needs to be chaired by one of the strongest persons on the board. And what happens when you appoint a nominating committee in November or December, you usually appoint somebody who hasn't done much of anything all year. So you think, well, here's a good job for them. It won't take too long. Well, that's not the person you want to chair this committee. You want someone who's really strong and understands what your board's needs. Its duties include assessing current board performance, both the board as a whole and individual board members. That's why it's important for them to meet year round and talk about things as they come up. It is responsible for developing or refining board position descriptions. And how many times have you possibly recruited board members without even giving them a job description as to what their expectations are? And you just think, well, they're a good person, they'll be good on the board. No, that doesn't work. Trust me. It evaluates the needs of the board and develops a profile of the kind of people that are needed to fill the vacancies on the board. Now, oftentimes we limit that to their positions. We say, well, we need an attorney on board and we need a banker or a finance person on board. But it goes deeper than that. It talks about diversity. Do they represent your community? Do they represent your clients? Do they understand your programs? So it's more than just finding an attorney or an accountant to be on the board. That really doesn't do the trick either. And it works with the full board to help find the right people to fill those board positions. They don't have to personally go out and recruit everyone. They should encourage the board and tell them what is needed on the board and ask the rest of the board members for ideas and possibly even to invite people on the board. It assures diversity on the board. I think that's becoming more and more critical, especially if you serve a very diverse population. You want to make sure that population is represented on your board. It implements, along with senior staff members of the organization, board orientation. You should always orient the board and tell them what's expected. Maybe take them on a tour of the organization if they haven't been already on a tour or know much about your organization. And here's where you can get into more details like sharing your strategic plan, your development goals, and things like that. You don't want to get too detailed in the initial orientation, in the initial recruitment of the board, but during orientation, you want to make sure that you answer all the questions that they have. And it's responsible for the ongoing education of the board. So let's say that your organization is considering a capital campaign. The whole board is going to need some training on what is a capital campaign and what's our role in it. So those are just a few of the things that I want to highlight from this book, because I think recruiting the board is the most important aspect. Dealing with troublesome board members and things like that, yes, that happens sometimes in organization. But if you recruit board members in the right way, you're going to have a much smoother running organization and much more successful organization. So I hope you'll pick up this book and learn some of the lessons that we've shared. Joanne and I have spent many years as staff people, as consultants, and we've worked with all types of boards, believe me, trusting from that really terrible experience I mentioned earlier to fantastic experiences with board members who really understood their job and were willing to get involved. And one of the big things to remember is that board members are responsible for governance, but not for management. They don't come in and do the day-to-day operation of the organization. So I think this book will really help you. And like I said, it's a very quick read. You can probably read it over a lunch hour or in an evening or something. So I think you'll get a lot out of this book. So I hope you pick it up and you can really learn how to recruit a 5-star board. Thanks.